Are you sober curious, or perhaps you've quit alcohol and you're interested to know what changes will happen? What will happen to my body, my mind, my life now that I've quit the booze? Well, this video is going to be for you because I'm going to reflect on 6 months of alcohol-free living. My name is Dr. Alex George and I've been sober for over 2 years. My focus in this video is really about what changes to expect at that 6-month mark. And do you know what? It is a really important point in time when it comes to quitting booze, and a pivotal one for people deciding whether to stay on the alcohol-free bandwagon or go back to drinking. Some of the changes I'm going to share might surprise you. Some of them are good and some of them are perhaps bad. Let's get started with the video. If you haven't yet already, do subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications when new videos are made, and of course it supports the channel to grow too, which is a bonus for us. Let's get started. I personally found that 6-month mark to be a really eye-opening time. I expected in the first few months to see changes. What I didn't expect perhaps was to be at 6 months going, oh, my life really has changed. So much has changed. So let's delve into that a little bit further. I'm going to be talking about the physical changes to expect, the mental changes, some emotional changes as well, and things within your social life and finances. Now, in a previous video, I did a reflection on 2 years, and I also did a reflection on the first month or so. But this middle point of 6 months is really important. Let's start with that. To start with, habits take time. So reforming a habit of not drinking alcohol takes time. Around 66 days, apparently, it takes to form a new habit. It also then takes time to readjust to this new way of living and have an opportunity to step back, look back and think, what has changed? And I think that's why 6 months is such a big one. So what does change? Let's start with the physical side. So I've talked previously that even in the first week or so, you can notice changes to your skin, less puffiness, your eyes, some of these kind of little changes, I guess, that happen, actually quite big changes in some ways. But over time, huge changes happen with your physical health, and here's some of them. So first of all, for me, what I really noticed was that weight just was falling off. I mean, I made a video on this recently. I lost around 6 or 7 stone when I quit alcohol over a period of about 2 years. I really noticed in those first 6 months that weight just poured off. Why? Alcohol is very calorific, and it also really affects your habits, your decision-making around food and exercise and so on. So the weight just absolutely poured off. But what surprised me, and I think was actually a bigger change than I expected, was the amount of physical energy I would have and my physical capacity to move and exercise and just like exist. See, before, when I was drinking, I was lethargic, my movements were slow. If I did go to the gym, I couldn't really work out properly and I'd be sore for days and wouldn't be able to go to the gym again. At 6 months, I really remember being like, oh, like I train most days, I walk loads, I move, I get up with energy, and my body feels good for it. It really is incredible to notice and realize, like, oh, this is my natural human state. What was before was unnatural. This is actually how I am. This is how my body functions. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because alcohol affects pretty much every cell in your body. Every part of your body has an impact, but it affects your muscles, your heart, you know, your nervous system, which is important in exercise, as well as, of course, your things like motivation and so on to keep sticking at it. So it was amazing. I absolutely loved it. Just 6 months in, being like, I'm getting fitter, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting faster, and wow, I've been able to stick at the exercise. So that was a really, really big one for me. Now, let's think about some of the changes that happened internally. Now, these are things that perhaps I wouldn't have noticed so much, but things that will have happened. The way I was drinking, I certainly would have been impacting my internal organs like my heart and my liver and so on, as well as, you know, big organs that we can see like my skin. Now, 6 months in is a good amount of time for many of those organs to recover. We shouldn't overestimate the ability of the liver to recover. Now, of course, you know, we talk about it as this amazing organ that you can kind of chop a bit off it and donate, and you can cut things out of it and it actually regrows and it's amazing. But when it comes to alcohol, sometimes we overestimate its ability to recover. Now, that doesn't mean that quitting alcohol won't benefit the liver. So even if you've got advanced liver disease, quitting alcohol is the most important thing that you can do. We shouldn't kind of just assume I can drink for years and years and it won't matter. That being said, it is an incredible organ and it does have an incredible capacity to recover. So 6 months in is a good amount of time for your heart, you know, your liver, your body to start regenerating from the alcohol. And I really think that although you can't see those changes, the culmination is that you can feel them. Another big one, sleep. Now, sleep is rubbish for the first 8 to 10 weeks. Honestly, it just gets so bad, certainly for me. For most people that quit alcohol, they've been having a reasonable amount of alcohol in their life. Honestly, you just kind of don't sleep well, you're not able to get to sleep, you have vivid dreams, but then there's a beautiful turning point that happens where all of a sudden you get this sober sleep. And at 6 months, hopefully, you will have achieved that lovely sleep. And you've had a period of time, of a good few months, where you've benefited from it. Now, you can't catch up on sleep. Matthew Walker talks about this. You can't catch up on sleep. That sleep that you've missed is gone. But what you can do is make sure that from now on you have good quality sleep so that your brain can regenerate, that it can process things that have happened in your life, good things, busy things in the day, traumas as well, difficult things. We need to realize that sleep is an active process, an important process to deal with everything in your life, basically. So 6 months in, it's so lovely feeling like I'm just more rested. I'm just feeling better in myself. It's a lovely point to be at, especially because the sleep is difficult to begin with. A note on the physical changes, and I have the benefit of, well, I'm 2 years, so I know the bit between 6 months and 2 years. All of those things that you notice continue to improve, particularly things like exercise capacity and fitness and energy levels. I honestly think that you don't finish at 6 months, it continues to improve. Okay, let's talk about the mental and emotional effects. Now, this is a really interesting one because it's not all a good news story. Let me explain. Essentially, when you quit the booze and you stop drinking, you have to have this process of dealing with the cravings, the sleep disturbance, the kind of social challenges in the first few weeks and months, kind of finding this new identity of not drinking. So that can create some sort of turbulence in the first few months. Also, of course, you have the absence then of hangovers. Suddenly you feel motivated. You quite early on, I think, develop that kind of mental clarity, the awareness of what is in your life. But what happens up to this 6 month period of time, and why I think 6 months is a really crucial part of deciding whether to kind of stick or twist, to go back to booze or not to drink, is because I think it's really tough. I think it's not an easy time. Is it an important time and a good time, and are the changes going to benefit you? Absolutely. But does that mean it's easy? No. Think of it like therapy. When you go to therapy, the truth of therapy is that it's hard work and it's difficult. And in the movies, people go and you're sitting on the couch and they're asking you a few questions and you've got a cup of tea and it's relaxed. In reality, therapy is about digging stuff up that's difficult in your life, putting it in front of yourself and the therapist that you can both look at it. You've got a professional angle looking at things, helping you understand what's happened, and you're able to look at it and process it. That is hard. And actually, in therapy, things get worse before they get better. That's the process of it. You've got to almost open the cupboards in your bedroom, so your wardrobe, pull all the messy clothes out before you can fold them up, organise them, put them back. Because at one point, you've got all the clothes on the floor, and it's an absolute mess. That's kind of the process of therapy, and that's also kind of the process of what happens in the first 6 months of drinking. Because, say, 0 to 3 months is going to be acknowledging, right, what does it look like, this thing of like not drinking? How do I do it? Dealing with the cravings, dealing with the sugar issues, dealing with the sleep. It's kind of more of a practical process of establishing this new way of living. From kind of 3 months to 6 months, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I haven't got it all together. I'm not 100% like, I understand this new life completely. Why would you? Please remember, if you've been drinking for, say, 10 years, you're not going to learn in 3 or 4 months a completely new way of life. It's absolutely fine to be a beginner at that point. I still feel like a beginner at 2 years, so don't worry about that. But that 3 to 6 months time, I think a lot of stuff comes up. It can be stuff that you've been suppressing. Maybe you've been using alcohol to suppress stuff like grief. It can be dealing with things like, oh, I wasn't always the best person when I had a drink, or I made errors when I was drunk that I wouldn't make, or I wasted time, or whatever it might be. I'm not applying judgment with any of those things, but lots of things can come up that you suddenly got to kind of sit with and realise, and you don't have booze to turn to because you've quit. So I think that 3 to 6 months is dealing with stuff coming up and learning how to manage it. So learning to sit with difficult emotions, learning to sit with the things that need to come up, you need to process. Perhaps you realise I need some therapy on these things, so there's managing that. But also, at 6 months, you really have to You don't have to. I think you really want to start establishing ways of coping. That's a really important point around mental and emotional changes. At 6 months, I think it's a really good point in time to start establishing, if you haven't already, what do you do to deal with difficult stuff? The stuff coming up or just life? Exercise, people in your life, therapy, other hobbies, meditating, learning to sit with things, developing those skills and that toolkit that allows you to deal with the stuff that otherwise alcohol numbed. I think it's an incredible part of the healing process. It's a necessary part. Doesn't mean it's easy. And that's what I want to be honest with you about on this channel. It's not like, oh, quit alcohol, all your problems go away. It's not true. It isn't true. And actually, if you look at the comments of videos I've made previously, you'll see that resonates with what a lot of people are saying. The fact is it a better life? Yes. Is it an easy process? No. But that's okay. The good thing is, and the really positive point, is all the things like clarity, sober clarity improves, looking more into the future and the way that you want to live your life improves, understanding of values improves. I think at 6 months as well, you really start understanding a little bit more about who am I and what do I want. Don't stress though, this does take time. 6 months is still very early, and don't worry if you haven't got it all figured out. At 6 months, you do hit quite a big milestone. It's amazing. And if you're at that point, you're getting to that point, that's absolutely amazing. We celebrate you. And I think what happens is you get this what now phase. You get this kind of, what do I do? I've kind of hit this milestone. I've stopped drinking. Do I go back or do I not drink? And I think there is an important shift from absence to what can I include into my life. So I think in the early months, you're thinking of like removing alcohol, that's getting kicked out. It's the removing the absence of something, and perhaps the absence of, or change of social life that you notice, that the taking away of a few things you notice. What is important is shifting now from absence to inclusion. What can I now include into my life? What's enriching that I can bring in? For me, I started riding motorcycles, and I think it was 6 or 7 months in that I really started kind of enjoying getting out on a Saturday and riding. What else can I bring in? What new hobbies? What new things? What adventures? Maybe it's a career change. Maybe it's just taking up something new. I'd really shift your focus to that, because that helps you when you're thinking, do I stick or not? It helps you lock your purpose onto something new, because I think there's an important transition that does happen. I think for me it happened a bit later than 6 months. It did, where I was not so focused on the milestones, that suddenly it was more about the bigger picture of my new purpose and new way of living. I definitely noticed that at 6 months, I started trusting myself. I had improved confidence and a belief in myself that not only that I could not have alcohol, but actually that I could have an enriching life without it, that alcohol-free living would be a new way of living. And, when I was going out, for example, and meet people, and we're going to talk about social changes next, when I kind of meet people, I just felt more assured in myself. I didn't need alcohol for this thing, which was socializing. So let's talk about social life now, because I think this is really important. Social and friendships. Social life and friendships. So on the point of going out, 6 months in, you kind of had a bit of practice at, going out, and the key phrases to hold, why don't drink? If someone asks you, you kind of own it a bit more, you feel a bit more confident. But I also think that fundamentally there's a shift, not for everyone, but I think for a lot of people, into a new way of socializing. So in the first few months, for me anyway, I would go and do the things I always did, which is go into the pub and not drink. So it was kind of like do the same but without booze, and it was get used to that and this new way of being. At 6 months and beyond, I was suddenly like, well, actually, I'm happy to go to the pub sometimes and I'm still cool with that, but actually I want to do different things. I want to find new ways of socializing. You start becoming, with the confidence, I guess you get this kind of feeling of let's venture out. Let's try something new. Perhaps you join I hate to say it again, a run club, or perhaps you've joined a chess club, whatever it might be. You suddenly just have this feeling, even if you haven't quite ventured out yet, you have this feeling that you want to explore something new. Like for me with the motorcycles, riding out to Riker's Cafe and chatting to all the guys and girls that have motorbikes, and getting into kind of a new social setting that I wouldn't have otherwise been in. And I think that really does happen from that 6 month period onwards. And it's an awesome part, an exciting part of sober living. Suddenly you're establishing, when I hang out with people, What kind of people do I want to hang out with? And what do I want to do? What do I enjoy? What do I find enriching? It's amazing. Right, now let's talk about friendships. This is a really important one. First few months, I think you notice who your friends really are. Very quickly, the people who were your drinking buddies will just drift away. They just will. You'll notice that people perhaps won't ask you to go to the pub as much. Perhaps you'll notice that you don't want to go to the pub with them as much, and that's okay. To use Mel Robbins' phrase, let them, is very important. Let people be who they are, and let yourself be who you are. Don't feel that you need to conform to keep people happy, okay? You're establishing a new way of living. The people that are important, genuinely important in your life will stay. Those who are not meant to stay will leave. That is okay. Just let them. What I notice at the 6-month part and the 6-month point is that actually you are starting to really understand who your true friends are. You know, you've really realized who has continued to want to hang out, who, you know, adapts the way that you socialize to hang out. You know, I've got friends who, would ride the motorbikes, or rather than go out to the pub, we go out for brunch and a walk in the morning. I'm seeing a friend tonight that we're going to go out for dinner, but we don't drink when we go and have dinner. You know, there's different ways of doing things with the good friends that you had when you drank. The ones that leave are the ones that weren't really there for the right reasons, and that is okay. It's not a judgment on them. They're on their path, you're on yours. That is really, really important to accept. The other exciting thing that happens is you create new friends, because you're going to start exploring different hobbies. Perhaps you're going to lean more into things like exercise, and you're shifting your time and the way you spend your time. Also, because you gain time when you don't drink, you have more time to socialize, you create more friends. And I don't think there has to be this feeling, though, of I need to make loads of friends. I'm now sober, I need to be friends with everyone. I still have a small friendship group. I don't have loads of friends, and I'm happy with that. And I think that's actually quite a good thing to say, is that, you know, think about this in terms of friendship and social connection, hobbies. The beauty of quitting drinking is that you're entirely you all of the time, and you can live your life how you want to live it pretty much all of the time. Okay, we have to work and all these kind of things, but you know, within the realms of that, we get choice and we know what we want. So if you don't want to go and socialize loads, or you are happy with your friendship group, or you're happy actually with your hobbies, you just wanted to enjoy them more or benefit from the other aspects of not drinking alcohol, that's okay. So don't feel like I have to go and suddenly be super social and create loads of new friends. You don't have to. The beauty is that you have the choice. It's just something I really noticed that was lovely, is that I felt I had the option and had the confidence to go and create new friends. It's an amazing thing. Right, let's now talk about some surprising changes that I noticed at that 6-month mark. And I'd be really interested, for those of you that have gone past 6 months, have you noticed that? Or perhaps if you haven't, have you already noticed it? Has it crept up and something that you've been aware of? So the first one I would say is, in actually links to the social stuff, is that if you have social fatigue and you're tired, you are tired. There's no way of changing that. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you turn up to a social event at 8 in the evening and you're a bit knackered and you don't really feel like it, there's no real way to augment or change that situation. In the past, you grab a beer and you know what happens. You have a beer or two, suddenly you've got the energy and you've got the buzz and whatever. You can't really do that. You kind of have to accept what it is and how it is, and then in a way you have to plan a bit more. So if you have a social event on, say, a Friday evening, or a busy day Friday, you kind of need to have an early night on Thursday, or think about whether you're rested enough for that kind of social gathering. But on the flip side as well, sometimes you'll go to things and you have good energy, but the whole thing de-energizes you, or you're left feeling fatigued, but not in a way that you kind of empty the cup and you feel happy. It's kind of, this actually is the people have been tiresome, and these are not people that I've really enjoyed my time with. And I think that's something that you do learn. And it probably surprised me a little bit how much I was kind of like, oh, actually the people you're with can really impact your energy levels and I guess how you feel. I know that and experienced that before, but the sense of like oomph, I think it's something I just was aware of. The second surprising thing that I noticed was the changes with cravings. So in the early days, you had more like pangs to have a drink. Particularly I found if I was like around other people drinking, or if it was like a sunny day or something, like, oh, a beer would be nice. That gradually drifted in the first few months, to be honest. Like it went away quite quickly actually, once I kind of felt the kind of benefits of it. But you do notice that like big life events, big moments. I remember my birthday, for example. I can't remember, I think my birthday was a little bit earlier than 6 months. But anyway, the point was that those kind of big events, you kind of think, oh, it would be nice to have a drink. And that is because so much of our psyche is life events you celebrate with drinking, or you mark it with drinking. So it's not so much that really you had a better time or you need to drink, it's that actually you grew up with this notion that like weddings we drink, birthdays we drink, Christmas we drink, we kind of celebrate, or you know, we use alcohol as the thing that like marks occasions. So I noticed that quite a bit. And also if you're feeling a bit rubbish, sometimes you have that feeling of, oh, maybe I'd have a drink, or feeling a bit bored, I'd have a drink. So the cravings don't go completely, they definitely weaken a lot. Right now, I don't have any cravings at all. So that's me personally, but I noticed that actually probably from 6 months to like a year, the cravings just disappeared for me. So just an interesting point to think about if you are someone that's finding cravings is still a part of your experience. Number 3, which surprised me a little bit actually, probably because I thought when you quit drinking, suddenly you'd have like loads of energy, which you do, and you'd always be fulfilled and always be like, everything's great. As I've said already, that isn't necessarily the case. But what did surprise me is that there is this kind of sober boredom trap. So what alcohol does is it gives you the swings, the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, and it's the kind of act of going on the roller coaster that creates like this excitement, I guess. With sobriety, it's more ebbs, and actually you've got to create your kind of rushes, if you like, or create your excitement if that's what you want. And that involves getting dopamine in new ways. So the rush before was having the dopamine of having the drink and the environment and so on. Whereas now you've got to think, well, actually, how do I create my new dopamine? Is that, hiking a mountain? Is that going for a run? Is it, going for a picnic with friends and having a great social time? Is it going to the theatre or so on? You've got to kind of create your own kind of highs, if that makes sense. Of course, life will give you those and you'll have those opportunities, but I do think you have to kind of culminate a bit more of that. Also, I think the thing I learned as well is that you need to learn to lean into boredom. Boredom is good. Feeling bored is good. We are not meant to feel stimulated all the time. I mean, the definition of being stimulated all the time, I guess, is actually being overstimulated. If you're stimulated all the time, you're overstimulated. You need to have natural ebbs and flows and times where you're bored. If you're sat on the sofa on a Wednesday night or a Saturday night even, and you're feeling just a bit bored, lean into it. It's great. Enjoy the boredom. Enjoy the feeling of I'm sitting with myself. I'm at peace with myself and I'm chilling. I think it's a great skill to learn. So much of boredom comes from the expectation gap. It's like, I should be doing this, but I'm doing this, and therefore this bit in the middle, I'm feeling the FOMO, I'm feeling bored. Actually, you don't have to be and shouldn't be doing anything. Lean into boredom. It's a beautiful thing. Once you've learned to really sit with yourself and accept that feeling of boredom and go, that's okay, wow, that's a powerful tool. The final thing that really surprised me was how exciting it is at 6 months to look into the future and see what's on the horizon. I kind of imagined at 6 months you'd be like, oh, okay, I've done it now. And there is this thing, like I said, where you can be like, oh, do I go back to drinking or not? And if you really focus on absence of drinking rather than the living side of it, that can easily happen. But as soon as you lift your head up and you go, I have my whole life ahead of me, all these things to explore, the new communities that I'm making and can make, the new hobbies that I want to do, the learning about myself, the connecting deeply with myself and in my own skin and my own life. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. And I'm excited for you if you're at that point. And if you're sober curious and you're thinking about doing this, you've got it all to come. And what's amazing is that this movement is only growing. Every year there's a new stat of an increased number of people that don't drink. It's like 40% of under 35-year-olds now don't booze. That's crazy. That's a huge number. So you're part of an amazing movement. Guys, I hope this video has been useful. Let me know in the comments. Jump in the comments, guys. First of all, how are you getting on? If you've quit drinking, what are you noticing? But particularly if you have already done that 6-month mark, what did you notice? Were there things that I said that you disagreed with, or additional things that I've not mentioned or missed or haven't experienced myself? And I guess if you're on that journey, maybe it's an opportunity to ask others about their experience. Guys, thank you so much for joining me for another video on the YouTube channel. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Please do hit the like button. It helps the channel, algorithms and all that. But most importantly, take care of yourselves and goodbye.